Great. So good morning, Dr. Harry. Thank you for being here with us. So I'll start the question in terms of where you're working. I believe you're at Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital. So maybe you could just give us a brief in terms of how the experience is, what you're involved in at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, David, and for the opportunity to be able to speak to you and to others through this video and forum. So right now I'm the head of department at the Kenyatta University of the Pharmacy Department at the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. In other places you'd call that the Chief Pharmacist. And it's really been a journey because we started the hospital really, we started the hospital and the department at the same time, which was in 2019. So that has been about a 3.5-year journey. And it's been exciting, just setting up things from scratch and innovations and troubleshooting and laying foundations and culture. So that has been a really exciting journey. We started off with about 10 staff, about 5 pharmacists, 5 pharm techs, and we are now about 30 and growing. So my day-to-day duties include, of course, overseeing the day-to-day operations of the department, of course, involved in strategy for the department and advising management on what should be the best way forward for the pharmacy department. Of course, implementing the strategic plans and being involved in the strategy at that level. Of course, we can't talk about not talking of supply chain, ensuring that drugs are available day to day. Whatever else you do, if that doesn't happen, then you really and people will not look at you favorably. So yes, so if in everything that I do, I think we ensure that drugs are available for patients as and when they need them, and those drugs need to be safe, efficacious, and cost-effective.
Okay, that's great. A great overview from a strategy and policy perspective, then actually to the operational, into ensuring that the medicines are available and working with the teams. And my next question is actually based on I believe you worked at Kenyatta National Hospital at one point. At that level, probably at kind of operational level, now you're serving as the chief pharmacist. What are the dynamics in terms of your skills that are needed for the different types of jobs? And what learnings do you see from what you did at KNH and now what you're working on at KUTRRH?
I think, thank you for that question. I think KNH helped lay a very strong foundation for me because it gave me, and I love what KNH does because maybe at the time, I don't know that things have changed, but it gives you a management experience at a very early age or at the get-go. When I started in KNH, I was given a unit to run, the staff pharmacy. And that was without prior management or supply chain experience. In fact, those days we were not even taught supply chain in our course at the university at the B Pharm level. We had started doing social and administrative pharmacy, but I don't think, again, we drilled down into day-to-day supervision and running. But yeah, so there I was, and I had to really learn how to manage people, how to manage stocks and inventory. And yeah, so it was a very quick learning for me. And I realized very quickly that I needed to have those skills with me. So shortly after that, I enrolled for a diploma in healthcare management just to enhance my skills. From there, I was moved to the drugstore of the hospital. So really here, the store was really managed by the supplies department. But my role as a professional was to ensure that procurement of drugs is taking place, and drugs, when they are received, they are of good quality, and of course distribution to other pharmacy units take place as and when they should be, so that people get more or less what they should be getting, not different drugs that they should not be getting. So again, the learning curve there was very, 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 very fast, because I realized, again, without supply chain knowledge, issues of inventory management, which I didn't quite know or understand very well. So I started reading a lot, and fortunately, my boss was also very supportive. She had a very, very good. She was a very, very good mentor. In fact, She's the one who mentored me, Dr. Muragi, the late, really mentored me into who I am today. A lot of the things that I learned in supply chain, in pharmacy management, is the one who taught me. So with that background, I was able to begin to ensure that drugs become available. Of course, the follow-up was a very key part of what that means. If you worked in public service before, you know that if you don't follow up things, then definitely things will just lie there. Not because people don't work, sometimes they get overwhelmed, and sometimes the priorities may not be their priority. So I kept pushing, I kept talking to the chief pharmacist, oh, you know, this, we raised this requisition at this time, and so on and so forth, and yet it has not yet come 2 weeks later. So eventually she constituted a small team, myself, the supplies people herself, so we constantly met, and that changed around the whole drug situation at the time of the hospital. So if you're in those days, there are always constant newspaper reports about stockouts in the National Referral Hospital. So that situation changed. And I remember I was that year I was given the best technical staff of the year for the department because of those efforts. The director also recognized my efforts in ensuring a reliable drug supply in the hospital. So that foundational experience was critical for me because that is basically what I've built on even as I work in this position. Of course, I have bettered myself in some of the courses in supply chain. I have done a postgraduate diploma in global health supply chain, so that has also beefed up the skills that I needed in this area. I've worked, of course, in other places that have also made a contribution to what I'm doing right now. So I think in a nutshell, whatever we experience, the mentors that we come across, the people that speak into our lives, the experiences we have, all built to the bigger picture of where we eventually are serving the areas that we are in right now.
Great. And actually that bit, the key things that you mentioned at that particular moment is when you're doing the work, the persistence in terms of follow-ups. Supplies are not there. You need to keep following up and actually making the requisition and following up on who is going to make that decision. And I think that is a skill that we need to take up, because one of the key bits, actually, even in the last interview that we did with Dr. Mwangi, stockouts became a constant. And the question is, when you're having stockouts out of stock, hakuna hiyo dawa is the only thing you're telling patients, they're not seeing the value of having you there at the end of the day, because you're not trained to tell them there's no medication. So that follow through is important. Then the other bit you mentioned is in terms of mentorship. How do you get the mentors at that level? Were you proactive in terms of seeking Dr. Bilha to be your mentor, to give you the guidance that you needed? And how did that work out? And as young professionals, how do we seek out these mentors, and what opportunities are available for us? Do we have to wait for them to be in our stations of work, or do we have to seek them even beyond our places of work?
Yeah, so mentorship worked well for me because Dr. Bilha was really a very social person. So, and she just talked naturally, just talked, and as she talked, you're just picking up the vibe and the energy and the information that she has to give. So she would talk for hours and make jokes as she does that and talk about family. She just mix everything into one big picture. So so it was a natural mentorship, I believe, for her. In fact, I got shocked because that's not the picture I really had of a boss. Because I'd expect a boss to be a bit distant, doesn't quite engage at those very personal levels. She would even introduce her family members when they came to the pharmacy. They would come a lot to the pharmacy. The doctors, I knew all the family, her whole family. Yeah, so of course I took the opportunity. Then when I relaxed, I took the opportunity to ask questions and to try and be as close as possible. And anytime that she was available, because of she was busy, anytime she was available, I would book an appointment. And as much as I would be following up things that are pertinent to the hospital or to my work, she would take that opportunity to say one or two things that would encourage me or build a specific skill set or thought process within me. So I think I would say it's best if it's done in a natural setting, as you troubleshoot on many things, then that can happen. So I think my advice is for the young people is, of course, when people like ourselves and people who've been there, I believe, have a propensity or a desire to pass on the things that we already know. Sometimes we may not, because of the busy schedules we have, sometimes we may not sit back and do that naturally. Sometimes it can take a prodding just from somebody young, a person like yourself, like what you've done for this Footprints project, just to ask a question. Daktari, what do you think about this or this or this, as you are discussing other issues? That becomes or turns into a mentorship conversation, and slowly it can grow. It can be mixed like that. Then it becomes more easier and more natural to flow, so that you get a bit today, tomorrow you get another one, the week after you get another one, the month after you get something else. And so it just keeps growing naturally within the context that you have. Of course, there are those who would ask specifically that, would you mentor me on this specific aspect? And again, that is still a good way of doing it. If the person has the time, definitely that would be a good way of doing it. And if they're willing, of course, then they make room for that. That would be also willing. And I've had one or two people ask me for that. And again, I usually have to find room or time just to ensure that that happens. So I think if you find that you have a mentor who you really look up to, and you can talk directly to them, they're easy to approach, then I think those are some of the things you could consider doing. Of course, there are those who sometimes we may not get close to, like Dr. Mang you interviewed. I mean, not that he's not accessible, but sometimes you'd see him or in the PSK meetings, and you just observe and see how. So observation is just also another way of drawing in from mentors. So sometimes I'll just go for those PSK meetings just to absorb the kind of the things that my mentors do, how they do things, the energy they have, the thought processes they have, and just be inspired by how it is that they operate. Yeah, so mentors, I think, are in very many spheres. Dr. Menge also was a great mentor for me, in KNH when I was there, because I remember before I went to the staff pharmacy, I was posted to his unit, of course, to learn how to operate the unit before. And so I could see how he operated, how he interacted with staff. It was a very key part for me. How he troubleshoot when there are problems. There would be a problem and you'd have to create a solution. So he mentored me in that way. And of course, even in my CV, he still remains a referee even to this. And of course, I could mention many others along the way. Yeah, but those are from KNH. Those are the ones that I would easily pick up. Oh, and of course, I can't forget Dr. Tieno Ojo. Maybe you don't know her, maybe colleagues may not know her because she's not currently in Kenya. She works for the UN, and she's been there for over, I think, 15 years. So, but at the time she was in KNH, very strong member of the faculty. Eventually, she became the chief pharmacist of KUTRRH, chief pharmacist of KNH at some point before she went to the UN. So again, those are people that mentored me and were in my space. So I really do appreciate the fact that we do need mentors in our space. Sometimes they mentor us unknowingly, even as we interact with them. Yeah, so increase the opportunity for interactions with these men. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very critical. We have to be available where these people are to be able actually to know what they're doing. Because there's no likelihood that I'll reach out to you to seek mentorship if I've never known what you're doing and I don't even know the background of the work you're doing. And then the other bit is this aspect on formal and informal learning and informal mentorship. Because one bit that I've also noticed from other engagements through our work with young professionals has been, like, for example, in the young pharmacist group, people need to be mentored, yes. When you pair them, they're also not so sure, how do I take up these mentorships? So I feel it should be proactive, driven from the mentee who is seeking that support. But at the same time, the seniors in the profession being willing to share that knowledge, being interactive, being engaging to the young professional, so then they're able to actually capture the learning from those opportunities. And one key bit that you mentioned that I feel is very important for us is in these professional settings, especially PSK meetings and PSK engagements, by being present, you're able to listen to people. It might not be during the presentation where we'll probably have one or two people presenting, but even during the networking engagement, we are going for the meals and all that. those are some of the things that I noticed actually could be of value actually to some of our young pharmacists. So thank you for that input. And I've looked at it on a different aspect as well, which is valuable for us. So when you look at your journey, yes, KNet played a big role in terms of the leadership journey, the mentorship that you got at that level. Then after working at KNet for a period of time, you transitioned to the kind of I would say the private sector in the consultancy space and all that. How was that experience for you? And what informed the decision to move?
Yeah, so for me, I think I've always had a risk. I'm not too risk averse. I think I share 50-50, so I'm not too risk averse. So, of course, with that move, I had a permanent and pensionable job in KNH, but I was still young and willing to explore the world. So, 2 years after in KNH, after I've gotten quite a good experience, not probably enough, but good in my consideration, I took a move to an insurance company. Actually, it was a startup. It was just starting up. A colleague of mine called me from Aga Khan. Interestingly, the company was housed in Aga Khan. It was run by a former CEO of the Aga Khan. So after he left his position, he was given space, what you call the tower block. It's a very tall building, Aga Khan, on the top floor. So that's where the offices were. It was called Strategies Health. And it was just starting up. They were looking for a pharmacist, and they wanted to work in the corporate health insurance space to start company clinics, where they would either use the existing company clinics to take them over and run them themselves, or put up their own clinics in different cities, and then just where people could come, like the AR clinics that we see. So so I interviewed for the pharmacist, and I was picked because of the background that I had in drugstore, management of supplies and all that. So again, that experience really became handy. That's what they were looking for, because they wanted somebody who would set up the whole purchasing system, supply chain system, and distribution of drugs to different clinics. So that was a very exciting opportunity. Actually, my salary increased tenfold just by making that move. Of course, those days we didn't have the allowances we have today, so you can imagine. I think I was earning about 12,000 at that time. So, so it was a good move for me financially, and also as a challenge, because this was a new frontier. And I think I didn't know then, but I realized much later that I'm more in the innovative space, where I want to troubleshoot something new that is starting, and I like that kind of a challenge. So for me, it appealed, and I took the dive, not without fear, not without reputation, but I just trusted God that He would carry me through. Of course, part of that is believing that you have something to offer, and that you're also capable of offering that. So I was really the only pharmacist in the organization, and so we started hiring staff, farm techs. So we grew from one clinic. We had one clinic, then I joined when they had just started one clinic. And we grew that to about 12 clinics countrywide, as far as Kisumu. We had something in Mombasa, KPA clinic. We used no, we didn't run the KPA. We ran the Nairobi KPA clinic. So yeah, so we got quite a number of clinics. Some in ICA building. We refurbished a clinic space there, and all clients, corporate clients, would come there. We had quite blue chip companies. It was really just corporate only, corporate run kind of insurance business. I think one of the things that I really liked is the management of HIV at that time. At that time, HIV was not managed by insurance companies, because they thought it was a loss-making. So they didn't cover for HIV. But our boss was an American, decided to take that on head-on. And yeah, we started a HIV clinic where there was really a teamwork, where the pharmacist, the clinicians, the nurse, and the counselors would come together just to manage the HIV patients. And we saw tremendous outputs. I remember one gentleman in AT, when we first did his CD4s, he had a CD4 of 1, and he was on the dying, he was towards the end. But the program, he revived. I mean, we started managing him well. You know, he was a very good IT person and very valued by the company. Within a very short time, all opportunistic infections disappeared. He was strong and he was able to continue his work. By the time I left 4 years later, he was going very strong. In fact, his CT4s now were almost normal. So, I mean, that's the power of just taking science and using it even in the business areas to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after that, after I left Strategies, I started a consulting firm called Strategies, Ruel's Health Consulting. Yeah, so in this, we were doing really consulting services to the health insurance sector. So our first contract was with Aon Minet. Actually, it took about 3 years for us to get that contract because these were innovative services that were bringing. Nobody had ever done them in the market before. And I remember making my first. I didn't have an office then because I just left home. I just left the company. So I made my first call in a phone booth on Koinange Street because that was my office. So interestingly, the person I got on the other side at Aon Minet listened to me. He was the medical director then. And interestingly also that at that time, also thinking along those lines, so they invited us for a discussion. I called a fellow doctor who had also been working with in Strategies. And we went for that discussion and we started talking. So long and short, about 3 years later, after back and forth, because it was also a new project for them. And they're also a global company, so there's a lot of approvals and all that. So within 3 years, we were able to get onto that project, and we started what we call outsourced call centers, where we put our staff there and in their premises, and they pick calls on behalf of Aon Minet. So that's how we started off, and that business grew into healthcare call centers, wellness call centers, where people call for psychosocial support and that kind of thing. We also worked with, of course, the companies that were under Aon Minet for different things. So the business just kept growing from there. So that was a very exciting, very innovative space. From there, we also worked with Ego Africa Insurance Brokers, one of the largest insurance brokers in the country. And under them, we worked with CBA Bank for their corporate wellness program. Again, something that was also a new and a first in the market. So again, nobody had ever done it before. We were also trying, they were also trying. So we just brought innovation into that space. There are some things that, the medical director at Aon would say, this corporate client needs this. When you come up with a solution by tomorrow, and, just burn the midnight oil, just looking through the internet, coming up with a proposal and presenting a solution the next day and costing it even, so that the good thing in that is you can cost as much as you want because nobody is doing it. So there is nothing to compare. So that was my experience, very exciting space. And these services are needed, but you have to be there. You have to prove yourself, and then people give you more to do as you continue to prove yourself. So from there, I realized at some point that I still had a liking or something in my pharmacy area. I mean, we are not doing a lot in pharmaceutical area, so I had to make a decision. I realized I really needed more technical skills in the area that I was now serving in, especially I had taken a liking for wellness, corporate wellness, and I had done a few courses on that as well. Then I realized now I needed to do actually a master's degree to actually take it to the level that I wanted. At that point, I had to make a decision. Do I go that way or do I go? Because pharmaceuticals for me was still something that I had not yet, in my view, completely exhausted the options that I had thought about in my career path. So I made a painful decision. At some point, it was probably helped by the fact that in the company, we also had a few struggles with my partners in terms of agreeing on the way forward. So I made a decision it made it easier for me to just decide to go back to pharmaceuticals. That's when I applied to KU as the head of pharmacy. KU, the university, not the referral hospital. So I did an interview then, and I was picked to head the pharmacy services. I was there for about 6 years. And then after that, again, the hospital opened up in 2019. And then again, they advertised. I applied. I was among three or four pharmacists who applied. So we all interviewed. Again, I got the job, and thanks be to God for that. So that has been my journey up to now. After about three or so months in my job as the chief pharmacist, I was again asked to take up the role of acting director clinical services of the hospital, which I was able to do for about 1 year, 5 months. That was during the COVID time, very stressful, very intense time. I actually, that experience for me was an area of exponential growth, both in terms of understanding how to deal with pressure because it was immense, but also how to deal with over 18 departments that were making demands all at the same time. So it was a quick learning. But as I said, I think all these things that I had done before had prepared me for that time. So, and also I would very strongly say that God gave me wisdom, gave me strength, gave me understanding, even in all the assignments that I had to do. So that has been my journey. And of course, at times I would act as the chief executive officer. When the CEO was away, it's natural that the director of clinical services takes up that role. So I would be acting for 2 weeks, for a week, for a few days. And sometimes I would be combining the roles of both the CEO and the director of clinical. So very hectic. And yeah, without God's grace and strength, I would really have, it would not have been an easy journey. Yeah.
And that's actually a good journey in terms of the different pieces that are coming together. And you find that there are certain instances that in your career would inform whether you're making a move or not making a move, but it also has to be based on what are your interests. And you need the graces of God actually to make that move work for you at the end of the day, because everything is dependent on what God decrees on us. So we make the best of that. So looking at that journey, one of the kids, actually I have a question for you from the innovative aspect of things, getting into strategies consultancy, which was kind of a new area. Then from there, setting up your own consultancy firm, Rails Health and all that. So what are the opportunities that you're looking at for young people who are actually looking at going the private sector? That is one. And two, the young people who are looking at setting up their own farms and own businesses. How would that work? Maybe before you get into that, let me just think.
Yeah, so business is a different kettle of fish, actually. Again, a learning curve, just like I talked about going into supply chain when I entered KNH. Business is totally different kettle of fish. Nothing in what you've done prepares you for it. I mean, in doing business courses, and even if you have done business courses, I can assure you, the ground, critical ground, they're usually very different. Because you're having to juggle many hats at the same time. Here you are a professional, so you know the pharmacy very well. But here you need to understand marketing, you need to understand sales, you need to understand finance, you need to understand strategy, you need to understand all these things at the same time. And yet, when you start off, those are probably, you may not be, again, you need to fill these roles as they come. So maybe as you start off, you need to be first just looking for the office, determining where is the best location, and how will my customers view my location when I put it on my business card and when I tell them where my address is. So I think a lot of about many things, even as you go along. So I would say first and foremost, prepare yourself mentally. Prepare yourself by reading and taking short courses as much as possible. Take practical courses. Those are usually 1-2 weeks courses that you can do, and they're many that you can do. Then they're online. You can, nowadays, I think things are easier. You can do those online even as you prepare to do that. USIE used to offer one short course, 6 months, which I did also on managing an enterprise. So that I did as well for 6 months. So and it's tailored for business people. I think Strathmore also has that one also, that, you know, short, very practical, very intense short courses that prepare you for this kind of area. Because yes, you do need that preparation, and it helps. Also, the other advantage is, and you could go into what we call a business incubator that could also help you. Because some of those places are where we started off, and there are these offices in town where you have an office, but they have the common reception, and you have a common boardroom. So they give you a good address. So one of the places we started off was International House, Chris Kirubi's house. That's where we had our first office. We actually rented. They actually have that kind of a setting. So yes, you're not having to refurbish a whole floor, but you're at the right address. You're at a good address, so that they build confidence in you. Even if people come to us for a meeting, the boardrooms there are very, very expensively furnished. But all you're paying for is just rental space of one room. So start small. Reduce on your expenses. Basically, that's another way of putting it. But also, without having to, you don't have to pay the bank to get a good address. That's another way of also saying it. So yes, prepare yourself, and maybe one of the things that I would probably have done is try this business on the side. I don't know how that would have worked, but yeah, so that before I left, I probably should have started it on the side until it got to a point where I felt to sort of replace or come close to replacing my current income. Because then it gets a bit challenging when you're having to do with a meager, where you're coming from before, and then you're having to downscale the income that you're having to work with. That can be a struggle when you combine it with all the stresses of running a new business. We used to work very hard, leaving the office as late as 10 o'clock because of it just demands that setting up systems and preparing for the next day, and it's quite engaging. So preparing yourself for that you will have to take on many roles, that you may have to work late hours just to get the business on its feet. That you will have to, you may think of quitting many times, but you have to hang in there and just say, no, tomorrow will be a better day. So yeah, there are many times we struggled day to day. We didn't even have fuel for the car that we used to run, and so it just used to be that. But over time, we overcame those challenges, and we got more clients. We were able to move into our own office space in Westlands, a whole flat, and even refurbish it ourselves. So that's how the business grew. But I can tell you, you have to be ready for the shocks at the beginning. But hang in there, allow God to lead you, to give you strength. Keep preparing, keep sharpening your act. So as I said, initially wellness was one of the things it was one of the products we offered, probably not one that the market was quickly picking up. But when that opportunity came, I started doing courses online just to prepare myself for that. So when we got our first client, CPA Bank, I was ready. However, what we were not ready was with the IT system. So what we had done is promised that we will run the wellness program from an IT system platform, which we had not even created at the time. That was during our marketing. So when they engaged us and we signed the contract, we actually used the money to develop the ICT, the platform. Yeah, so a few challenges there is for ICT, especially because we unfortunately, because of by the time now we started engaging the wellness program proper, that was when the platform was ready. All these challenges, what we call bugs in IT systems. So if you have not tried it on somebody else, please don't try it on your first client, because you'll always get quite a few challenges, which though they liked our product and everything, the philosophy around it and how we wanted to do it, they had challenges with some of the kind of the newbies sort of kind of things, the challenges we're facing because we are just a new setup. So yes, But it was an exciting journey. I can do it over and over again. If I could live for 1,000 years, definitely it keeps, those are things that keep somebody alive and kicking. So yes, we developed a software to run wellness programs, and we tried it out in with our first client in CBA Bank, and for 99%, I would say it worked very well. The 1%, unfortunately, cost us that contract. So their parting words were, as I said, you guys know what you're doing. We love you, but you know, we would like to work with some people who are more established, because then those small things that are very annoying, and will not be there. So what the lesson that I learned from that is, I mean, if you're going to deploy something as major on a big corporate like that one, you probably don't want to start off with an IT system first time. You probably want to start it on smaller organizations, troubleshoot, rectify those small mistakes, but they're not very particular about you know, those kind of small mistakes. Yeah, so those were my learnings as well. But yeah, so if you have an idea, please go for it. Put a sketch of a business plan. If you can do the whole business plan, that's good, but at least think it up before you get into it. Think through everything. If you can get somebody to help you think through it, like a professional in business plan design or whatever. Don't make it too complicated. Just, you know, but at least try to think of everything as much as possible. The finance, the strategy, where you want to go, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that was my journey.
Good. And that's interesting, because what I'm looking at it is from a business standpoint, and this I'm looking at even including the work that I've been doing. I ran an initiative that is agriculture, health, and social innovation. Started in 2017, we've had our teething problems and all that. Luckily enough, I have a team of other colleagues and young people who we're working with who keeps it moving. So for me, it's about setting the strategy and working with them. But I totally comprehend the aspect where you have the technical expert, you have the idea, but you need to have a marketing acumen, you need to have the sales, you need to have the programs running day by day. But at the same time, you also have other commitments. So that is a critical bit that we need to master. But the other question that I'm asking is transitioning from this kind of business to come back. And normally transition from the private business, actually own businesses, normally there are challenges. And I've seen it even among my young colleagues that we are in. There's one bit where the business has made what it means. You put up the structures and you're willing, like, let me leave it for other people to keep running it so that I look for other opportunities, whether in the business world or go back to mainstream employment. Two, you've tried the business, it has not worked and it's actually failing, but you're not willing to give in to the last stroke actually to acknowledge this thing is dying off. How do we make that decision?
I don't think that's an easy one either way. I don't know that there's one answer that fits everyone, but it was very difficult even for me to make that. Very, very difficult. It took me almost a year and a half just to make that transition, actually. And again, when you're making and maybe that's another story for another day, transition, mid-career transitions, again, you have to think of so many things. When you come back, the people you had left in, now they have moved up, so where do you fit? So again, there are limited opportunities again. So, but in terms of deciding when to make the move, I think you really have to do a lot of introspection, and I think the situation would have to be very unique and specific to yourself, because so for me, I would say I made the decision based on two things. One is the fact that I felt that I had not exhausted what I needed to do in the pharmaceutical area. And I know I made the right decision, because my passion, another passion I do have, strong passion, and stronger than even what I had done before. And actually, that's an interesting thing, because I have several passions, but I have to make decisions about which specific ones to follow. So the more prevailing one, or the more superseding one, was in the area of evidence-based medicine, or evidence-based pharmacotherapy, and its application in in issues of formulary development, universal health coverage, now that we are entering into that space. So that became more of my, what pulled me in that direction, as well as the issues of supply chain in pharmaceuticals, because I've seen all the challenges that brings in a place where it's not well handled, and the suffering that goes on for patients. So that overrode the desire to take up a new area, which was wellness, corporate wellness, which was an exciting area, fresh, new. But then this other area was pulling probably more strongly. So then the other thing was, of course, the business environment that I was in. As I said, I had a company that had we had invited a few people along the way, and I could see that clearly there were challenges, even amongst ourselves. So I think that just created the opportunity to move. And then, of course, I looked around at my other circumstances, and so I took the whole picture and decided to just make that move. So I think for somebody else under the same circumstances, I don't know, probably would have made a different decision. But yet I thought that was the best decision for me at the time. So yeah, so I would say sometimes making the move to give up is not the best. Sometimes the resilience is important, but you have to weigh all the options around you. You weigh what are the likelihood of me being successful. What is the market like? Is it so you really have to look at especially those. So personal circumstances can be difficult, but I don't think those necessarily need to be ones that you look at. I know people make very personal, deep sacrifices when it comes to business. I know my friend Duarte of Resolutions had to sell his house. And he tells this story very, very, and he lost his house. He also lost his wife. So yeah, so it can come with very deep sacrifices. Yes. So, but he didn't give up, and he's where he is today because he did not give up. So yeah. So for me, I know I still dabble in that space at some point. I'll go back to the things that I have not totally forgotten them. So there will be the time to pick them up again.
Sure. So thank you for that. Actually, it makes so much sense because there are different factors. But one key thing is where you are interested and where do you feel you can make maximum contribution and actually see the successes of the work that you're putting into it. But at the same time, one key thing that you capture there in terms of the skills that you had, the interest that you had, it's about even when you're venturing into these spaces, we are gaining skills. How can we package that skill to position us and actually help us in the next journey that we're going in? So I think that is also a gap that oftentimes for some of the colleagues that I've had conversations with, they're like, well, I've been doing this for so long, and I don't even know how do I package this information to make it be marketable to the next employer who might be willing to have me on board. You've already taken a risk, and being even willing to take that risk is already a skill by itself. Not everybody will take it. So that kind of an approach is a critical bit. So thank you for that bit. Then I'm going back to where you started your career, NQCL, National Quality Control Labs and all that. How do you find that experience for you? And how has it informed your aspect in improving systems and processes in these places where you work? Because you understand the aspect of quality to a greater extent. And I think as pharmacists and basically professionals in the healthcare space, that is something that we need to focus on, specifically being we're dealing with patient lives and human lives generally. So how was your experience at NQCL and how are you applying?
Yes, NQCL.
Yeah.
So NQCL was where I was posted after internship. That would be immediately after internship. That was my first posting, and I spent about 3 months there. Probably not too long but at least enough to understand the issue of drug quality and the standards that are used in evaluating the different molecules. Of course, NQCL received samples to be tested from the Pharmacy and Poisons Board and other persons, but mainly the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So just ensuring that whatever it is that we are receiving in the country is of good quality and that meets the British Pharmacopoeia standards or USP Pharmacopoeia standards. And the trouble that we have to go through to ensure that we got the right chemicals to test these drugs. So, I think one of the things I really appreciate, I had a colleague called Dr. Kefa Bosiri, also a good mentor of mine. He mentored me very well. He's very passionate about this area. In fact, I think he went on to do a PhD in that area, and he's at the university. But I clearly did not share his passion. But I did recognize that he was very innovative in a professional way. In terms of sometimes we not have the chemicals that are needed, but you know, you'd use the chemistry that we had learned and you know, come up with a solution to enable the analysis to continue without undue delays. Of course, the challenge of procurement was still a challenge. Even there, the issues of you can't analyze this drug because this specific drug is not there. So you find a whole analysis cannot be completed because there's still a specific component that is missing. So again, I would say supply chain needed then to be beefed up. I hope it has been beefed up now, because that would cause delays in terms of even approval of drugs for registration. That was the reason why it was brought there, and so on and so forth. So yes, that experience has been useful in terms of understanding the quality and what it takes for the quality of drugs, assured quality of drugs in the market. I know sometimes people may feel that sometimes the drugs some may be finding the way here that are good quality and so on. But yes, the NQCL does its work and does it thoroughly. I know that time there was Dr. Ugaja who was in charge, and she was really passionate about the work there, and she really encouraged me to stay on as much as possible. Unfortunately, my interests lay elsewhere. But yes, if that's your area, I would definitely encourage that. That's an area that we need in the Kenyan market to build up and continue upholding. So the drugs that we get of good quality, they're efficacious, and of course they are cost effective. At the bedside of the nurse, I mean, of the patient, the patient, when they receive those drugs or when they receive them from the pharmacy, it is what was done up there that will make a difference. Was the drug analyzed and passed because it had the right ingredients? If that was not done well, then what we get on the ground then is just talk. So yes, the work there is very important, and of course it's also important, equally important, that there is that continual checking of quality for drugs with every batch, and I think the challenge is on us to keep finding a systematic way of ensuring that keeps happening, that every batch that we test is of good quality. So the first one may be good, we don't know about the middle one, we don't know about the last one, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Actually, that's critical bit in terms of ensuring the sustainable quality of the product along the life cycle of that product. Because at the end of the day, if the first one met the standards and the second doesn't, then the patient who will use the second will not get the benefits that they are hoping for and are assured of. So that has to be there. And I'm hopeful that as we continue working in the profession, we'll do the best we can to ensure that is met. So I'll move from these aspects in terms of the professional journey and all that bit, in terms of the success, the accomplishment that you've had, but also from somebody who is looking at Dr. Anthony Kamau in terms of the career, and we'll see you're very successful. What are the greatest challenges that you'd have? Because somebody would be like, well, this guy has found it easy and everything has just moved on swiftly. So what are the challenges that you've had in your journey?
Thank you. I think if you have listened to me from the beginning, that's to my audience, you probably have had the challenges, but I'll just pick them out. So one is knowledge deficit. Because as I said, if you come into new areas that you have no knowledge of, even if you've been there before doing regulatory, now you're moving to supply chain or NGO, that's a new area completely for you, even if you're 40 years old. So again, it requires a whole change of thought. You'll have to equip yourself with the skills that are needed so that you're competent in that area. The fact that I'm a pharmacist, yes, I understand the biochemistry, I understand the pharmaceutical chemistry, but what my job demands now is supply chain, to ensure that drugs are available when they should be available, in good quality. So those skills, that knowledge is needed. So you have to beef up, whether you're going to read books at night, whether you're going to take short courses online, whether you're going to go back to school. I think you have to make a deliberate effort to keep growing in your area of in the current area where you practice, so that you can actually excel. Because there's no point in just doing a job halfway. Give it everything, excel in the area, be very good at it, so that people take note that yes, he's the right man for the job. The other challenge is making transitions, and I said business. Those are difficult times. Of course, if as I said, my transition was rather abrupt, so that moving without necessarily having a safety net, a strong safety net. There was a safety net of sorts, but not as much as I was earning before. Yeah, so again, thinking about making that transition, maybe starting a business, and then without compromising on your current job, and still being able to grow it on the side, and then eventually transitioning rather than making an abrupt move. So that can be a bit stressful for the family. That can be a bit stressful for you as an individual. So that has been one of my challenges. The other challenge is what I would call fitina in the workplace. I think in one of the places I worked with professional colleagues who are older than me, and I was their boss. So unfortunately, a lot of politics. They started bringing a lot of politics and undermining and all that. So really working through that journey was not easy, because these are your colleagues, people you want to respect, people you want to work with closely. Yeah, so eventually that went the way it went, and unfortunately one of the colleagues had to leave because of theft of drugs and so on. But yeah, so those professional, yeah. So then the final one is, of course, as I said, making the mid-career transitions, going back from business to employment. I think just finding now it's a whole new world again, because you are in another world that other people don't know. So you come back to this pharmaceutical world, whole different world. So you are starting to find your way around. Okay, so what's happening here? Who is where? And yeah, so it takes a bit of time to make that transition again. So that was also another challenge. But I would say all of them were good in their time, challenging, but they just they grow you if you allow them to grow you, rather than become a temper.
Yeah, thank you for that. And those are critical aspects, because they actually link to the different phases of your career journey, your personal life, and how you've moved around it. And the key bit is we have to understand that these dynamics, and these dynamics will at one point impact us. The question is, how do we deal with them, and how do we emerge strong enough to actually continue the journey of life as we move along? So thank you for that.
So maybe the one that's the other one now would be the moving to a different role, especially as a director of clinical services. Because again, here you are required to lead in a diverse environment. Again, you have no skill, not knowledge rather, knowledge in terms of like now if you're talking of medical social work, that's a department you're leading. You have no knowledge there. You're leading an oncology department. You're leading internal medicine. You're leading laboratory. I mean, without. So here, what is called for is more the leadership skill, the management skill. So yeah. So again, realizing that yes, keeping growing. I think the need to keep growing in leadership and management is a constant factor. Even as a chief pharmacist, that's something that I emphasize to my team, and even mentor the interns in. I usually have one session of leadership with the interns before they leave, because we have to open their minds to the fact that over and above the fact that they are doctors, actually one of the things we'll always be called upon, whether at home, in the community, in their workplace, is to take up leadership. And so they need to equip themselves with leadership skills continually. So that for me, the challenge of leadership is a constant challenge. Ones that I would emphasize and encourage all of us to keep growing and developing. The places and the spaces that we could fill in with good leadership skills are many, and those opportunities bypass us if we are not ready or equipped for them.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That leadership aspect, and we have to take leadership and acknowledge that we're working with others in different functions, and we need to be able to actually change our mindset from being linear in terms of what we were managing to working with different cross-functional teams. I think that is very important as well, even in terms of the current challenges that we're dealing with as young pharmacists, unemployment, the challenges in terms of policy reforms, and every other time we have the appeals to CAP 241 related. So those are things that we need to be cognizant of and see how we change with them. And that comes with leadership and management principles and knowledge that we need to acquire. So thank you for that bit. Then now from that point, what I'm keen to understand is, you've talked about God as a key pillar in terms of your life and your religious commitments and pursuit to life. That is one bit, but also your family development and kind of upbringing. How did your upbringing inform and actually model the Anthony that we're talking with today? And how has your religious journey also played a role in all that?
Yeah, so I brought up my parents who are walimu. I would say my dad was a teacher, my mother was a teacher. So really very passionate about reading and studies. My dad used to buy me books just to read, and that helped me grow my many things, interests, and at a very early age. He'd buy me all sorts of books to read, storybooks, all sorts of books. So I got a reading culture very early. My mom was there every evening teaching us, helping us do our homework. So she was engaged. So we felt the support that we needed. At some point, my dad helped me to. In primary school, I actually I got good marks, but not enough to get to Alliance. I got to Thika High School. But my dad helped me to transition to Alliance High School in my first term, my second term, my form one. So initially I was not doing very well. I think I thought the same way I was doing in Thika, I would come and do in Alliance. I realized it's a different environment. But by the time I finished, I realized I worked very hard and was one of the tops at the school. So the fact that my dad took the time to show the potential and did whatever he needed to do to get me to Alliance was something that really I'm truly grateful. He's late, so I really respect him for that. So he kept encouraging me, and even along the journey of the career journey that I took, when things were not going very well, we'd always have meetings. You'd always say, "Hey, come on, let's meet up and talk." So he'd keep encouraging me. I would tell him some of the challenges, and give his wisdom and advice. And so that became almost like a partnership, just doing life together. So that has really helped me to also take my in terms of education to very high levels. I have done like I said, I have done 2 master's degrees. I have about two diplomas, one a postgraduate diploma, and many certificates of all sorts. So that for me it's that they help lay a very strong foundation for that. So, and probably haven't even stopped the learning journey. Probably just taken a break. But yeah, so that passion for learning and was laid at a very early age. So maybe encouragement to us, even as we have children and grow families, that putting these things in the hands of children, you don't know how far they take us even in the future. Of course, my dad also helped me at the point I said I was not doing very well at Alliance. He I don't know how to put it, but he called in my uncle, and no, actually that was a different time. But he did sit me down and let me see the seriousness of the fact that I wasn't doing very well in my first year, first form at Alliance. And I sobered up in my second form. I went to the again after that. So that constant talking to young people, it's not a waste of time. Don't let them go. Don't say, that's how you he's not failing, he's not doing well. Yeah, so that opportunity just to keep engaging with the young people is also important. Those young people could also be just professional colleagues in the marketplace who you work with. Just keep engaging with them. Never write somebody off and say, one will not make it. Yeah, so always engaging people, never giving up on people, praying for people. So in terms of faith, I got born again in my second year at the university, and I picked it up, or God helped me pick it up very strongly, and I've been really passionate about faith and about more so for me is the practicalities of it in the marketplace. Because yes, I believe faith should be there, but if it doesn't show, or it doesn't help you live a life that honors Him in the marketplace, and that's the workplace, then I don't think it should be out. So that's what I've endeavored to do, is to do my very best to honor God. One of the rallying words that I go with is whatever your hand finds to do, work at it with all your might as working for the Lord and not for man. Then you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord. So that means if my boss is cross with me or is not the best boss, then my higher boss is actually the one that I end up working for. So my question is always, who do you work for? If you work for God, then it doesn't matter what seasons of life happen in your life, whether your boss is off mood or on mood, you will always give your best, because then you know who you're working for. So that has helped me improve, keep improving, and give everything that I have. Another issue related to serving God is, of course, that He calls us to be accountable for the talents and the gifts He's given us. So if He has given you all that He has given you, intellect, He has given you as a skill, He has given you a natural talent, then by all means, make sure that all those things are used to the very hilt. Don't leave any one of them unattended. And it's not easy. I know it means that you don't necessarily rest on your laurels and say, I've reached. It means that you keep improving on yourself, keep checking on areas that you can improve on, and keep growing. For me, in a summary, it is for me, it's continuous growth, continuous improvement, and honoring God in everything that I do. Of course, the whole issue of integrity is very important, because then you can't honor God without having integrity in the marketplace. So opportunities definitely come where you can compromise that. So this pharmaceutical company has done XYZ for you, and they want you to earn a favor for this or that. So those opportunities are many, and I've had to stand down many and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not able to move down that direction. If you have supported us, we'd like to look at it as partners, and that's the way we'd like to look at it. We support you, support us as a hospital, but I'm not here to benefit personally, because now that would be going down the wrong road. And yeah, so I think keeping that helps. And I've really enjoyed the journey. The faith journey is really enjoyable. I also I'm a deacon in the church. I also get to lead in Bible studies in the church every week. I also lead in an organization called Bible Study Fellowship, which is an international organization. I'm a leader a substitute teaching leader in one of the classes in Kamau, for men only. So again, great opportunity for me. God's word is something I'm passionate about and like teaching, and more so applying. I think the application is what we need more for us.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. You've captured it in the sense that from a parenting standpoint, we have to be present and we don't need to give up on people. And actually, when you say that your dad used to buy you a lot of books, it reminded me of a YouTube video that I was watching this week by Abdul Karim Jabal. So he's one of the basketballers in the US NBA player. And he told us that actually in that video, he says, for every question that you would ask the dad would buy a book that talks about it. So for you to get the answer, read the book. And it became a reading culture, and is actually written a book, Becoming Karim, That is lessons and what he has done. In that same video, he talks about how he sold all the rings and all the medals that he won to take kids to school, because he has an inclination and he believes that something can be done in that space. So that is very commendable. And I think that as individuals, and whether parents biologically or people we take care of, we need to not give up on them, but give them the opportunity to realize the potential that is in them. And the other key bit that you talked about in terms of religion, I think that really resonates, and something that we need to emulate is integrity and spirituality is not about what we talk about, but what we do and what we manifest in our day-to-day dealings. If you're not being of integrity in terms of your actions, whether you talk about it or not talk about it, doesn't make a difference. But you have to emulate it and be the model. I think that is very critical that we need to take up as we move on in our journey. So thank you for sharing that. So as we end this particular one, it's actually the last 4 minutes of our discussion. Where would we expect to see Dr. Anthony in the next couple of years? What priority areas of interest are you focusing on?
Yeah, so my priority areas of interest is, as I had mentioned, is on universal health coverage. I've been equipping myself for that area. Last year, I finished master's in health technology assessments, pricing and reimbursement from the University of Sheffield. So it has been an interest area of mine for many years. It's probably now that it is becoming a hot topic, but and actually WHO is really supporting universal health coverage in settings like ours, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and so on. So that's an area that I believe I want to make a contribution, more so in the area of cost-effective medications, because you realize there are thousands and thousands of medications that we could potentially use. But which of these would be more cost-effective for the kind of economy that we have and the resources that we have? So between making a choice between this product, which cost me 1,000 bob per vial, and this one that cost me 50 bob, yet the efficacy is the same. And I have a population of 40 million people whom I'm giving free health, free in the sense that they're not paying. How do I best make those decisions so that the largest number of people benefit from the least resources that we have? So that's the space that I want to go into. And yeah, so of course, it starts where I am, making decisions about formularies, ensuring that formularies are actually working, which we have already designed one and launched one last year. So starting from the grassroots, actually taking it to policy level, where we are now talking about even creating what we call health technology assessment organizations that actually look at new molecules that are more expensive than what is already in the market, and making decisions about whether we should adopt it as part of a national formulary and being reimbursed as part of the drugs that are being reimbursed for universal under the universal health coverage. Because ultimately, I believe we'll have to come up with what we call a national formulary, like what it is that we're going to reimburse at the national level if we are going to make universal health coverage work. Because we can't reimburse for every drug, because we don't have unlimited resources. But how do you make decisions? How do you best make decisions? And that making of decisions is where I want to be at. How to best make cost-effective decisions and so on. Of course, there are political aspects to it, but I'm more looking at the technical policy-making aspects. Yeah, so that would be my contribution in the next few years.
Thank you so much for that. And it makes so much sense in the sense that you're now actually linking all your career journey from being a technical person in the pharmacy space, having worked in insurance, looking at the finance aspect and bringing it back together to see how do we serve the ultimate patient, the beneficiary, the patient, to get the cost-effective medicine at the most affordable rate. And I wish you well in that journey. And I hope we get to interact and work together in that space, because I also have an inclination towards policy and regulatory and pharmaceutical system strengthening policies. So we see how we work together. So my last question as we close it off, that is the last one. If somebody wants to be Dr. Anthony Kamau, what do they need to do in a sentence?
They need to know God. They need to trust God. They need to work hard. It's a lot of hard work. They need to forgo many luxuries. but also they need to play hard. I mean, I always balance the two. I don't say one, you do one, but also do the other as hard as the other one. So work hard, play hard, keep improving on yourself. Always keep improving on yourself, and everything else falls. I think once there are many things that fall in place once you love God. Your time aspects, how you manage your time. You somehow find time for other people and everything that you need to do, but you also do all these things well. Help you to do them in a spirit of excellence. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That has been very, very insightful, and actually I've enjoyed the conversation, and I hope the listeners and actually the people who are going to watch this recording will find value in it and emulate these learnings as we move on in making ourselves better individuals. And by being better people, we become of more service to the individuals that we are serving in our different areas of work. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm